Hello and welcome to Awful Commentary. Today we're going to be talking about Fallout 4 character builds. And more specifically, character builds for Marvel's upcoming movie Captain America 3 Civil War. With Civil War fast approaching, there are a lot of people who are going to maybe want to introduce these characters into the Commonwealth, and you might be thinking, just how do I do it, Dominic? Just how do I make them? Well, don't worry, because today we're here to tell you. With Civil War featuring just so many characters, it would be almost impossible to put them all in one video, so today we're just going to break down Team Iron Man. Now, one thing I should mention before we go any further, this is only going to be for the human characters, so Vision or anyone who does magic like Scarlet Witch, not going to be featured here, because frankly it's just not possible to get them in there. So let's start with the man himself, Tony Stark, Iron Man. Let's take a look at his specials. Now, the one thing you're going to have to bear in mind when you play as Iron Man is that you're not just playing as Tony Stark. And this is something that will factor into your special stats at the beginning of the game, because you may be looking at this and going, whoa, Tony Stark isn't superhumanly strong. Why does he have a strength of 7? And that's because if Tony Stark doesn't have a strength of 7, then Iron Man is going to be almost useless in that power armor. And that is what this build is all about. It's all about getting the most intelligent character you can into the strongest armor that you can and laying waste to everything in front of you. You're going to have to remember that although you're wearing a battlesuit, Tony Stark is still a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, and as such, you have to max that intelligence out. Now, one thing that I have factored into the special stats here is the perception bobblehead comes up pretty early on in the game. He's only got a perception of 2 with this build, but awareness is probably a perk that you're going to want, not immediately, but later on in the game. So pick up that bobblehead and get awareness later. The only other special stat that you're going to need to work on throughout the game is charisma. Anyone who has ever seen Robert Downey Jr. play Iron Man knows that he's pretty much the most charismatic person on the planet. So a charisma of 3 seems, well, frankly, a bit insulting. This is a special stat that is low purely for roleplay purposes. And this is because you're going to want to work towards the Charisma 7 perk, Party Boy. Now, you may be thinking, come on, surely Tony Stark should have Party Boy from the beginning. But frankly, I would disagree with you. Party Boy rank 1 prevents you from getting addicted to alcohol, and anyone who knows the character of Iron Man knows that Tony Stark's pretty much the most famous alcoholic in comics. Combating his alcoholism is a major part of his journey as a hero, and that's something that could be reflected in your gameplay if that's how you want to play it. When it comes to combat, the thing you're going to want to remember here is energy weapons. Iron Man's repulsor rays are an integral part of the character, and you've got to replicate that the best you can. And with such a high intelligence, you don't have to go in all guns blazing. Anytime there's a protector on there, hack it. Anytime you're against a robot, hack it. Use your brain to fight your enemies.
Alright, so Dominic has showed you how to set up your characters and which special stats to choose based on their comic book counterparts. Now I'm here to show you how to play as these characters in-game. So for each character, we have given them 5 main perks, which we think best represent their abilities. So first up, we have Iron Man, and we have chosen Nuclear Physicist, Robotics Expert, Armourer, Commando, and Fortune Finder. Now you can see on screen here, this is my roadmap detailing all the perks you should take from level 2 to level 20, or in this case, I've gone to level 21, because that 3rd rank of Commando becomes available at level 21. And you can see for each character, we've fleshed out their levels with some additional perks that we think also go well with their character. So for Iron Man, these are perks such as Science, Lady Killer, and Hacker. Now for each character, I recommend you spend the first 5 levels inside of Sanctuary, scrapping everything you can and building some miscellaneous items. This gives you the option to take these first 5 perks before you leave Sanctuary, so you can go off adventuring in the Commonwealth with a character that at least somewhat represents the person you're trying to be. And also, we mustn't forget about the special book that's in Sanctuary as well. For Iron Man, you're going to want to add this extra point to the Charisma special.
Next up, War Machine. Jim Rhodes possesses a battlesuit made specifically for combat. While Rhodey isn't a genius on the same level as Tony Stark, he's a high-ranking military officer with combat experience, and that means you really can't rule him out. So let's take a look at War Machine's special stats. As you can see, strength remains exactly the same, but the biggest swap here is from intelligence to perception. And perception is perhaps the one stat that you'll really want to be improving throughout your playthrough. Penetrator and concentrated fire will both be really important when it comes to gunning down mass numbers of opponents strategically. And gunning people down here is the name of the game. Invest in heavy gunner, invest in demolition expert, and just obliterate everyone. The War Machine suit is designed to take their biggest guns that you can carry, use them, and bring some kind of order back to the Commonwealth.
The War Machine, the 5 main perks you're going to want to take are Armourer, Heavy Gunner, Demolition Expert, Bloody Mess, and Steady Aim. You can see here our perk roadmap, which includes the additional perks such as Hacker, Gun Nut, and most importantly, we're increasing that perception to work towards the high-level perception perks, Penetrator and Concentrated Fire. And because of that, when you get into Sanctuary, you're going to want to add 1 point to perception from the special book.
If order is something that you're not particularly interested in, then maybe the character that you want is Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff is an ex-Russian spy turned superhero, and that means you're going to need to sneak. As you can see, Black Widow's special stats are massively revolved around stealth. While you have enough charisma for Lone Wanderer and Lady Killer, you're not going to be doing much talking to anybody. With any luck, investments in Ninja and Sneak will mean that nobody even sees you coming. And that leaves the choice of weapons up to you. Black Widow is versatile, being good with pistols and bladed weapons. If you want to play a melee build, then maybe Big Leagues is the way to go. But if not, Gunslinger would be a great investment if you fancy using those silenced pistols.
Black Widow's 5 main perks reflect her sneaking nature, and as such, we've gone for Big Leagues or Gunslinger, depending on the approach you want to take, Sneak, Ninja, Lone Wanderer, and of course, Black Widow. Now, as you can see, we fleshed out some additional perks for her, which include Lockpicking, Hacker, and Night Person. And when you get into Sanctuary, you're going to want to get the special book and add 1 point to Intelligence. This will give you a high enough stat to take that Hacker perk.
And lastly, we have the newcomer to the MCU, Black Panther. Now, Black Panther is really difficult to predict for this because obviously we haven't seen him on screen yet. But what we've tried to do with his special stats is base him as far as possible off of the comics version. King T'Challa of Wakanda is another genius, but his greatest strength in this game comes from his sneaking ability. Similar to Black Widow, your enemies shouldn't even see you coming, and with such a high intelligence, you should be able to activate any robot and hack any robot that gets in your way. Now, this is another character for which I've reduced the perception stat due to the early appearance of the perception bobblehead. And most critically of all, we've almost destroyed his charisma stat. This again comes from trying to balance out roleplay and the reality of the game. Because there are such a limited number of special stats, it's just not possible to get his charisma as high as it needs to be. But more than that, T'Challa's journey is one of a great warrior who becomes a great king. At the beginning of the game, you will be a literal lone wanderer. But by the time you're finished, you'll be inspiring the Commonwealth to be something better. And at heart, that is what Black Panther is all about.
Black Panther brings a great mix of furious melee combat and intelligent robotics work, so the 5 main perks you're going to want to take are Iron Fist, Sneak, Ninja, Hacker, and Robotics Expert. The additional perks you're going to want to look at during his journey include Lockpicking, Moving Target, and Chemist, because we're going to be using Jet to give the sense of Black Panther's heightened agility and animal senses. And when you're in Sanctuary, you're going to want to use the special book to add 1 point to Charisma.
So what do you think of our builds for Team Iron Man? Did we make any glaring mistakes? Is there something that you would do differently? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching Awful Commentary, and we hope you'll come back to watch our next video, how to build Team Cap. Bonus round! The Automatron DLC has given you a robotics workbench. If you have the DLC, then you have the option to make the 5th member of the team, the Vision. The Vision is an android of incredible power, and as Tony Stark, maybe you just want to make a Mr. Handy version of Jarvis to follow you around as a robotic butler. But should you want something with a bit more firepower, the Vision's energy weapons are a good way of watching your back as you travel through the Commonwealth.
Identity confirmed.